Let's take a quick look at the Ordinal Patterns feature in the Efficient Cause Analysis for Paired Orderings. Now, before I select this button, let's remind ourselves what we learned in a previous video about the Examine Patterns feature. So let's take a look at the anxiety ratings. So recall the red line indicates the cause, the anxiety ratings, and it's scaled 0 to 10. And then the blue line represents the effect, the stress ratings. And again, those are scaled 0 to 10. So in this plot, we are looking at the data as they are originally recorded or scaled. And in that previous video, I covered these various statistics and these various options as well. So I'm not going to go over those again in this video. But instead, let's switch over to the Ordinal Patterns feature and select the anxiety ratings. And now we see the data reported as rankings. So the red line again is the cause, the blue line is the effect. So if I take those original data for the cause orderings and I rank order them from greatest to least, then I report those in this graph, and then take the effect orderings and rank those from greatest to least and report those in this graph. So that's what you're looking at here are the rankings. So you can examine the relative rankings of the cause and effect orderings in this graph. Now this matches up fairly nicely with what we saw in the previous graph, and you can see a fair amount of overlap between the red and the blue lines. Now the statistics all stay the same here because those are based on the options that we chose for the analysis. And again, I can do various things here with the presentation of the graph to change its appearance. For example, change it to black or white or including the grid and so forth. Again, I covered these options in a previous video, so I won't go over them again. Now, this particular type of presentation, this ordinal presentation of the data, might be more particularly useful when you have data that are scaled differently or radically differently. So recall in a previous video, we looked at these medical data, medication data. We had dosages up to 20 weeks, and then we have incidence of recorded heart attacks. So move those over as the effect. And again, we'll take a look at the patterns here, the 20 weeks. And so notice the scaling though, let me minimize this a little bit or shrink it a little bit. So notice the scaling are radically different for these two orderings. And if they were even more radically different, it might be difficult to match up the lines in terms of their relative changes over time. So in that instance, it might be more useful then to look at these ordinal patterns or this ordinal pattern presentation. I can go ahead and magnify this a little bit and take a look at those 20 weeks. And see, now they sort of match up a little bit better because now we're just looking at rank orderings, and that helps us to kind of keep the lines about in the same place on the graph. And as we always stress the eye test in the observation oriented modeling software, this might be a particularly useful feature then.